Well, they did. There was always a fight or two going on, it seemed like all the time. Well, we had a snowball fight one day, and I had a pile of snowballs sitting up there, and Warren Morehouse come over and jumped in the middle of them, and I took out after him, and Brother Jack, which was older, he come in to the school grounds there and was trying to get into it. Well, Bob Herman set up in the upstairs, look out the windows and watch the fights and see if they went far enough, then he'd go out and stop them. But he'd watch for a while. And every night after school, there'd be one or two fights. One of them was my cousin Bud Tanner and Ben Fewer. They'd have a fight just about every night. And then when they got done, they'd walk uptown with their arms around one another. Nowadays, they'd take a knife and cut you open. But I remember one time, Donnie Christensen and Russell Betts got into a little squabble, and they were sparring around, and Bud and Ben got into a fight over here, and everybody went and watched Bud and Ben, and they quit watching Russell and Donnie, and so they just quit too and went to watch the other fight.
Nobody's watching, there's no point in fighting.
Yeah, nowadays that's a little different. I just about got my grandson in trouble. And he was going to school in Hinsdale, and somebody was picking on him because he was crippled, I suppose, I don't know. So I told him, well, you don't have to put up with that crap. Well, I guess he got in trouble with the teacher because he didn't put up with it. Same way when he got down to Glasgow, they were picking on him.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to know which to tell him, when to stand up for yourself and when to...
Well, I think his dad said, I don't want to have to go up to the school for just one poke. This one kid was his friend, supposedly before that. Got to picking on him, and he hauled out and hit him and knocked him down. They thought he broke his nose, stepped over top of him to go after this other kid. Well, then they had that, I don't know, that Stormer had that big building on top with the cars in.
Mm-hmm.
He was up there one time, and somebody come and clipped him and rolled up the back of his leg, put him in the hospital.
Mm.
So I went up there to visit him, and Russ was there. This big kid was sitting there beside him. I said, who's that big kid there? He said, oh, that's the one Scott stepped over that other guy and was going to go after this other one too. I said, geez, he's twice the size of Scott. He said, that don't make any difference to him. Well, he decided he was going to be Scott's friend. He wheeled him around in a wheelchair. But he was a tough little nut. He got them boxing smokers they used to have between Glasgow and Malta.
Mm-hmm.
They had to quit them because it was pretty much a grudge deal. Well, we were up in the bleachers, and this
Thank you.
kid was down in the ring, shadow boxing and testing the ring out, and the guy up behind us, he said, God, I feel sorry for Scott. And he said, that kid's never been whipped in North Dakota in the ring. Well, all the matches that they had, this one judge, he didn't even look at it. He just voted Malta. Steve Bill was one of the judges there, and he just put his head down and shook his head because you could tell it was favored Malta. Well, Scott come in there with that other kid, and he just whaled the hell out of him. Scott didn't have no reverse. He went back up, bad leg. And the other one was Andy Fulgren. Done the same thing. It was only 2 matches that Glasgow won. So Russ was talking to that kid afterwards. He said, man, I couldn't get nothing in on Scott. Scott said, oh yeah, he did. He just about knocked me down once. But
Didn't let him know it, evidently.
yeah, he was doing some of that after he got over there in Williston. But he got married. decided maybe you better quit. And we had a knothead in college down there. I was supposed to get a basketball scholarship. So I went down there and I was registering, and I was down in Dillon, and this guy come up and said, the football coach is looking for you. And I said, I don't play football. He said, well, he needs somebody that can kick and can run. And well, that made my head get big, you know. I thought, well, I can do that. So I went down, and we was out practicing, and after the play, and he walked back, well, these upperclassmen would come and roll up the back of your legs. So I told the coach about it, and he just laughed. Well, he laughed. I said, well, I'll tell you something, mister. It might be funny to you, but it ain't funny to me. I said, I seen a guy get crippled for life with this kind of crap, and I said, this football isn't worth it to me. And I turned around and walked off the field. And that was Lloyd Jones. He had trouble with that knee ever since high school. He had one of the big Indians by the name of Bird come and clipped him from behind and ruined his knee. He had several operations, ended up with an artificial knee, and got infection in that. And so he had trouble with that knee all his life.
Lloyd did?
Yeah. Of course, the next play, we weren't a dirty team, but we were a get even team. Next play, that guy went out with a broken collarbone.
Oh. Have you guys done it on purpose?
Not me.
He's pretty good at saying that, isn't
Yeah.
he?
He was homesick.
Wasn't me, but
Yeah, I kind of had forgotten that Hinsdale had a football team. I looking through some annuals last year before the reunion and saw there's some pictures of my dad playing football.
Yeah. It was, I don't know, they had 1 or 2 years after I graduated, I think, later on, because I think my brother might have played. It got to be a kind of an expensive sport. And our track team wasn't, you know, there wasn't really too much going on at the time. And our track was out the North Road to run.
Oh.
And our football practice field was, you're too young to know this, but out in front of the old schoolhouse, there was a vacant spot. And that's where we practiced, and it had all kinds of rocks and glass and stuff in
Isn't
it.
that real safe to be falling and diving
So
on?
would that have been kind of in front of the Majestic Theater there then, or?
Well, it was in between the schoolhouse and the old Legion Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually probably knows more about it than I do because he's been studying so much on where everything was. Somebody said when we were talking about doing this, saying, you should have interviewed Edry McCauley because she would have known everything. I'm like, she's the one who started all of this. Because he actually interviewed Edry when he was in high school and that kind of.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little late now, but Lloyd Jones would have done a good one.
Yeah.
That's what Mark was saying. That's really too bad. Said
Yeah.
he spent a lot of time out with a bunch of the old time cowboys
Yeah.
and.
Yeah. Teresa Jones had said I should have just stuck him in a pickup and drove around and let him talk about all the places we drove by, but I was in Norway at the time, so I didn't get the chance.
Yeah, see, I wished I'd have had a tape recorder or even thought about it. Like, people like my dad and Ed Bundes were sitting around visiting, talking about things.
You might have 9 truths or 9 lies to every truth, but it was still a lot of fun to listen to.
That was pretty much true. There was a lot of history in Hinsdale and around Valley County when, back in the old days, they used to, well, the county, I think, used to go clean to North Dakota, I think, Valley County until they,
oh, did it?
Yeah, it went from, when they took it out of Dawson County, it was from the river, Missouri up, from North Dakota all the way, I think, to Chinook, basically.
yeah.
They took Blaine, and they took Phillips, and Roosevelt, and all those came out of Valley County.
And they used to steal horses somewheres down here, take them to Canada and sell them, and then steal them back in Canada and bring them back here and sell 'em.
That was a pretty high profit margin there.
Well, yeah, and then you kind of wondered when you get to driving around, see, like, when I was spraying that spurge, I had a guy here from Alabama or something. He was working for Jeff Pattison, and he went spraying, and he was well, I called him the old fella, but found out he was 6 or 7 years younger than I was. But we drive out south, and I tell him about, people that used to live out here, the ones that I knew. He couldn't believe it, how people could live in it like that. And then take him up north, and you go to some place like the dugout there on Willow Creek, and tell him about that. And the people up north like Duncans and Riggins, and he couldn't believe it. And you kind of wondered then how they made a living. I know my grandfather on my mother's side, they come from Kansas, and they were up in what they called the Kansas Flats up by Opheim, someplace up in there. And of course you had to go to town with a team of horses them days. So he'd haul a little wagon load of grain, I guess, down and haul coal or wood back. And then they moved over to a place up in Funks up there below the Lund place, if you know where that's at. And then they moved over here, and it was all the same. Horses and teams, and like same way with Biles up there, Louis, where he lived, right up next to the Canadian line. Imagine living up there in the wintertime with
Yeah.
all by yourself. And
Yeah.
there's my cousin and I were up on Brady place that Johnson's had for a while,
Mm-hmm.
calving the cows out. And we decided it was spring of the year, but the creek was still frozen. We decided we was gonna go across the creek for some reason or other, look at the cows or something. Of course, we were not very smart. We both rode across side by side and fell through the ice into the water. He went in deeper than I did. He was up to his shirt pockets, and I wasn't quite that deep, but it was still a long, cold ride back to that old shack and get that wood stove going.
I can imagine.
Yeah, we got rode all one night. This cabin and had a blizzard. And we rode all one night
making a
picking
mess?
calves up, bringing them into the house. And we never had an orphan. I don't know if we couldn't do that again in 100 years.
Wow.
Pretty lucky.
Yeah, could you do that with sheep?
You know, I had a little experience with them coyote bait. And I wasn't all that proud of them. Had 1,500 head
Wow.
when I was growing up. And if ever I wanted to do anything, well, you always had to mess around with them sheep. And right after the war, my dad bought a International M tractor. And I had to go with the sheep to move them north up on Snake Creek, driving that tractor and pulling the wagon. And my mother didn't think much of that. I don't know how old I was, maybe 10.
Wow.
And we got up there in Funks where you drop down over the hill into Willow Creek. And herder thought he saw some sheep over on the side hill. So I was supposed to just watch the sheep, and if they got up, I'm supposed to hit them down the hill. Well, being as how they were sheep, they went the other way. I'm in the
You
front
got
of.
that thing on him?
Yes, I did. I didn't want him jumping on everybody.
He's having a fit.
I guess he'll just have a thing.
Well, there's company. They're not paying attention to him.
Yeah, that's my fault. I pet him.
I'd kick him in the face and throw him down, and I was a bawling, and he come back with the horse and the dog in front of him, and they turned right around and went. Everybody used to come down and shear. That barn that's sitting on top of the hill at Russ's, that was the shearing shed.
Mm.
He had a 4-foot door with a ramp on one end. And then I had to fill the jugs for the shearers. I think it was Betts's and Laycock's and Elmo Pledge and Hellerstern's and Fred Keelman and all them guys would come over and shear. And for 28 days in June they never sheared a sheep. And my mother had to cook for all them people on a wood stove. We didn't have no electricity, so there was no fan or nothing. Hot,
Ugh.
muggy. Well then,
So how long did it take them to shear your
geez, I don't
1500?
remember, it seemed like all summer.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Doing it all by hand.
No, they had electric.
Oh, did they?
Oh yeah, they had a,
That must have felt like the best invention in the world at the time.
probably. But old Fred come down there with his sheep. Couldn't get him to go up this little ramp and into that door. So he walks out in the middle of them. You didn't know him, I don't imagine, but he was a big fat Dutchman. He just walked out there and started throwing sheep. I didn't think anybody was strong enough to do that, but pretty soon they started walking right up there.
I was reading somewhere yesterday, it was talking about the hard times in the 30s or whatever, and said that the sheep were better than the cows because the sheep didn't make a lot of noise when they were hungry or whatever. And that doesn't seem to make any sense to us from our
Doesn't.
experience with sheep.
Yeah.
Well, I guess every big rancher here in this neighborhood started with sheep except Frank Jones.
Oh, really?
That's the story I hear.
I've heard him say when they couldn't make any money with cows, they could always make some money with sheep.
Yeah. And then Dad tell about these shearing camps come around. Sometimes them sheep just like to just up and die on you when you're shearing them or whatever. So they'd drag them out. The Indians would come along in their wagons and they'd go along and they'd kick them, and if they sounded just right, they'd load them in the wagon and take them home and eat them.
Just to see just how far gone they were, huh?
Yeah.
Remember shearing once, and Craig Rutherford came to help us, and we was moving the sheep up the alleyway to the shear, and he grabbed hold of one sheep, like you say, by the wool, and went to move it, and the wool just came right off in his hands. Well, she had had a fever evidently not too long before, and it just come off in big old patches.
Easy to shear.
Ugh, it was nasty.
Well, I think I could probably handle them now. Maybe she could go along and cook for me, and I'd go out and sit in the hills and shoot coyotes and rocks and stuff. But
Sounds like a great idea, doesn't it, Bev?
Oh, yeah, I can hardly wait.
But back then, I got kind of tired of them. But yeah, then another story that these old timers would tell about was everybody farmed with horses. Well, when they got mechanized, well, they had surplus of horses, and they'd take these horses and run them out in the hog pasture, shoot them, and let the hogs eat them. And I guess there was a time or two that somebody didn't like somebody and shot him and his horse, and evidence was all gone. The hogs took care of it.
Shot the person?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Mark always said when we had pigs, he always said you never want to get hurt in the middle of a pig pen, because you might not ever make it out.
I've never cared for pigs.
Well, she thought I did one day. I did get hurt. I broke my back and didn't know it for
Oh, no.
a year and a half later. But
Oh, jeez.
come out of a basketball game, and I had my brand new overshoes on, so I took them off and left them in the car. I'd wore the ones that I wore to the pig pen, and they warmed up a little bit. Nobody bothered them.
Yeah.
So she took off running the street, and I took out after her. And I went to slow down, and my feet went out from under me. I had one of them caps where the tie-down flaps. If it hadn't for that, I'd probably busted my head open while right in the middle of the street, and I thought Katie Ellsworth was gonna back over top of me.
Oh no.
I finally rolled over and crawled to the car and went down. Lloyd and Evelyn was living in town at the time, and everybody was haw-hawing, you know, it was funny. Well, I got down home and I had I had a baby pigs storming, and she come home sick from pennies. I went down to give these little pigs some straw, and I had 2-foot boards, and of course big snowbanks and stuff, and I stepped over top of that, and I couldn't go any farther. I got straddled and couldn't get off it, so I just fell into the snow, and my dog jumped over and lit on my nose, and the blood was running down my face, and I come in the house crawling and
Oh jeez.
spearing blood on the wall, and she woke up and thought one of them saws had got me down. I had to come after me because I'd catch them pigs and castrate them. I'd tie them to my grinder. I always had a steel fence post along to. Well, I missed one late. I grabbed a hold of him down in the, here this old sow, it wasn't even her pig. She come at me with her mouth wide open, and I was looking around for a club, and I didn't have one, but I seen something move out of the corner of my eye, and here come this big old dog, and he grabbed her right by the jaw and set her on her hind feet.
Oh wow.
She went and stood in the trail. Pulled her off a rust one time too.
Good dog.
Yeah. I think Daryl Betts shot him.
Mm.
And a good time was had by all.